a while back, I think it was like a couple of years ago, I was teaching somebody something about Game Maker. And they're like, well, hold on. I don't want to become an expert. And I was like, you're not going to. You can't
Excuse me,
just
sir?
accidentally.
Sir, I need you to calm down. You are very, very dumb right now.
Butterscotch.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 81 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast of Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam. I'm the typer of ASCII.
I'm Sam, and I wiggle nudes.
And today is January 17th, 2017. Warning, anything can happen on this show. There will be profanity, and we're going to talk about a whole bunch of other crap. So if you're a baby, then stop listening.
You know, on that note, I think we do have a listener question which asks, why do we actually give that warning?
We do. That question comes from a Pixel and Bracket. Why the language disclaimer? Is that a choice or something you have to do for every episode because of platform rules?
I think this actually was because, so back a long time ago, when we launched Flop Rocket
Floyd
on
Rage.
iOS. We got an angry parent writing into us because there's the song that we use is a 15-minute song in the background. And there's a moment in there, like
at minute 5 and a half.
like 7 minutes in or something, where you just hear like cut the bullshit or something.
Pump up the bullshit.
Pump up the bullshit.
Pump up the bullshit.
Yeah. So something related to bullshit. It's not even that easy to hear.
It's pretty distorted.
Yeah. And so I actually didn't even know this was there. I think only one of us knew it.
I didn't.
Maybe only Seth knew it.
I didn't know it.
None of us knew
The
it.
problem is most of us, like you die in the first minute of Flop Rocket.
Right.
We literally only heard the first 2 minutes of that song.
Yeah.
So either none of us knew it or one of us did and forgot or something. And so we were just like, whatever, we just published this game. We got an angry parent writing to us.
I gotta say though, that was a super melodramatic email.
It really was too. Apparently this young child's life had basically been ruined because of the word bullshit appearing.
The child may have been 9 or 10 years old, actually.
Yeah.
But
This parent was just a maniac, really.
Yeah.
But after having that happen, we're just like, we don't want to deal with that.
With people being mad at us about language.
Yeah.
So we changed all of our ratings to teen on all of our games.
Yeah, so we changed the ratings to teen on our games. Just be like, we're gonna put a gate here to say, here's what you can expect, so that we don't have to get angry messages.
Yeah. What the disclaimer should be is this entertainment product contains the same stuff that exists everywhere in the world that you hear on a day-to-day basis everywhere you go.
So if you're trying to pretend the world is a beautiful place that has nothing bad or profane or anything else in it,
then
that's the fake,
and you need to
boring
maintain
ass
that
world you want to live in.
Maintain that narrative.
Yeah, then don't listen to this
Then
podcast.
you shouldn't listen to this podcast, or basically anything.
Yeah.
All right,
also, it's kind of fun. It's fun to have that announcement at the beginning, especially because if every once in a while, because Seth does a pretty good job of throwing some weird sauce in there.
Yeah, you got to. It does get boring to say the same thing every week, even though I only have to say it for like 3 seconds.
Exactly. This is why I have a different
by
job.
second 2, I'm just like, oh my god, I can't do it.
Yeah. So this is why I have a different job every week,
Yeah,
because these are also real jobs that I have in the studio.
Yeah.
But I just wear many hats.
Yeah.
It's more fun.
That's
not
why
to just
sometimes
be-
I don't even have a job.
Yeah.
My name's Sam.
he's just Sam.
He's just Sam
He's
right
samming it up.
It's just what I'm doing.
Sometimes one of us has a last name every once in a
Yeah,
while.
that's true.
It's pretty rare though.
Yeah, but again, you got to switch it up. You got to keep them guessing. Yeah.
Keep
all
them
right,
guessing.
So this week we have a bunch of news, and we talked about most of this stuff last week. But interestingly, all the stuff we talked about last week is actually happening this week.
Yeah. So today, which is going to be the 18th of January,
Even
when
though
you
we're
listen to
recording
this,
on the 17th, but today's
Hive Jump is out, and this is a run and gun sort of Starship Troopers-esque beautiful pixel art game made by a friend studio of ours in town called Graphite Lab. They've been working on it for a few years, and it is good and very gorgeous. So if running and gunning and couch co-op,
It's gorgeous.
It's
gorgeous. If couch co-op or just that sort of multiplayer frantic action is your sort of thing, I believe they do have online multiplayer. So you can hop in and run and gun with some friends and try to defeat the queen, who is always, always problematic in a insectoid sense.
Yeah.
So it is out now. And if that's the sort of thing you're interested in, definitely go get it. It's not, just as a fair warning, it's not the same sort of vibe as Crashlands, which is pretty chilled out, actually, as far as the game's
It's a very
concerned.
different game, but it's
Yeah, check out the trailer. It has music by Big Giant Circles, who does like really, really fun chiptune and sort of EDM-esque music. And
cover art by our very own Eric Hibbler. And by our very own, he's not ours.
He's
actually.
not ours, but
he's the guy who makes all of our box art.
Yeah.
So.
we feel like he's part of the crew.
Part of us.
Also, the documentary on the development of Crashlands, which is called A Crashland Story Dev Diary Season 1 Brace for Impact.
Mm-hmm.
So just a little bit of a word salad. But I watched it. It's super good.
I've watched 5.5 episodes.
I think so the first episode is actually up on YouTube.
For freebies. Freebies?
Yes. Searching for it is actually quite difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So we're going
It's got a serious SEO problem.
It's got an SEO problem. So trying to we'll probably actually put a link.
You'll put a link
to
in the
that on
podcast
our
description. So if
blog.
you want to check it out, just go to our blog, bscotch.net, and it'll be there with this podcast. And you can go and check it out. The first episode is, I think, 22 minutes.
Yeah.
And pretty intense.
Actually,
So
all
get ready.
episodes are exactly 22 minutes and 1 second.
They nailed
Nice.
it.
Yeah, because I was looking at the timeline on the thing, and I was like, how does that even?
But one thing you can do, a good way to find it, is if you go onto Steam and just search for Crashlands, you'll find it.
Yep.
It's right there.
Yep.
In the search
So
results.
it is available on Steam, and the first episode's free everywhere. And then I think each episode's like $2 or $3, $3. Something like
I
that.
think you can buy the
$3
whole
each.
thing for like $7 or something.
Season pass.
the
sort of
whole
thing.
package.
The whole kit and caboodle.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. So definitely go check it out, especially if you like listening to the podcast. It's literally just
It's basically that.
it's just
but
us hanging out for
with pitches.
6 months while Crashlands was getting done and while I was trying not to die. So it's good. It might make you feel feelings. Just fair warning.
Yeah.
Feelings will be felt.
Handful.
Yeah. Speaking of us being in pitches,
Where does this go?
we got a question. I'm mixing in a couple questions
Yeah, man,
into
go.
the news today, but we got a question from Kaki Chan 2, which is, I miss seeing your Butterscotch shenanigans Instagram posts. Are you guys going to be keeping that up? Twitter is nice for updates, but it's always nice to see you guys.
Oh. We're not going to be keeping it up, I guess.
Nope.
Short answer, but we are in the process of acquiring additional help for the office. One of which you might
There
take
might
on the
be some
responsibility of
Instagram.
doing that.
It is. I gotta say, when we were doing the Instagram stuff, I didn't like it.
I didn't either.
I
It added a weird artificiality to everything we were doing. It was like, now go pose.
Well, especially because if you did something funny, someone
It's
would
like,
be like,
do that funny thing again.
Right.
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 Put it. I don't
moment is
want
lost.
to.
How can we capture that funny thing you did now
Without
an hour
stopping.
later in some other context so
Mhm.
that we can, put it up on Instagram and reference it or whatever.
Yeah. And
It's
the
just-
thing is, I mean, it bothers me. It's because of the artificiality. Because on a day-to-day basis, like we're super engaged. We're really we're working hard. We're doing all kinds of stuff. And yeah, like every now and then somebody cracks a joke or whatever. But at no point is somebody like, I'm going to jump next to this thing and put on a huge grin and just stand here for a moment, right?
Right.
And so it turns every moment of the office into this kind of like weird. I
still wish that
don't
we
like
just,
it.
I wish we had what I'd rather have like outside of an Instagram is actually just like an audiogram where we've talked about this before. Where I just want Patrick to lace up some microphones in the office so that we can be like, oh, something funny just happened, note it down, and then he can cut it up later. Because
Or just have a button we can push.
Yeah.
That would then capture the last like 30 seconds.
Yeah,
and send
because-
it to Fat Bard.
because everybody's been getting more and more hilarious. I don't know what's been going on, but the last like 2 months or so, like as we've sort of been churning through the new year, like finally got through this huge slog of work for the holidays and all this other stuff. People lose their minds a little bit. So stuff gets very funny. And like yesterday I was leaving and Andy in particular, his dry sense of humor has really been ramping it up. And I was like, I'm going to throw my shoes on. He just looked at me and goes, that'd be impressive. I was like, you smart ass. So
But it would be.
but there
I
are
mean,
all
he's
these,
not wrong.
Yeah, I
to be
wish we
fair.
could share all those moments, rather than the fictionalized ones where it's like, oh, that was funny. Let's repose that. If you could somehow
It would be
get
a lot of
those-
audio recording.
But
what
you know
if-
what? You know what though? No, because those are ours.
True.
We get to. Those are our moments.
Yeah, you'll get 'em.
We get to keep
Mhm.
them. So
So
I don't know.
so
It's
fuck you.
Oh wait, let's talk about the podcast survey. You said 99 people have responded to podcast
Yeah,
surveys.
So the podcast survey's been up for, I don't know, 4
month.
podcasts, 4
Yeah, about a
podcasts.
month.
And we just we announced it the first time and then just let it sit there, and we've still been collecting responses. There was one response that was kind of dickish, but all the rest were great, and it was really fun to listen to read.
You got to
through.
get that 1%.
Yeah, you got to get that one jerk face in there for whatever reason. But yeah, everything else was really fun to read and get a sense of. And so we've had 99 responses now. We're just gonna kind of leave it there.
What did the salty person say?
Oh, I don't want to say it because then I'm going to call them out. So I'll just show you guys after we record this episode. But no, it's been really interesting to hear you guys say it. And in general, there hasn't been like one specific thing that people tend to like want us to do differently or add or whatever. Yeah, there's not a common thing. There are a bunch of kind of one-off things that a handful of people would like us to do, but it's usually, as we always see with our reviews for our games and stuff, it's one group says more of this, the other group says less of that. And so
I will say though, if you come into the survey just to throw salt, I just want to throw a little disclaimer there. You don't really have to listen to the podcast. Like if you just like hate it, then you just don't have to listen to it.
Yeah, that would be
I'd like to throw a disclaimer in there, which is, what are you doing?
What are you doing?
What are you doing, guy?
What are you doing?
We're lady.
We also have the Global Game Jam coming up on Friday. That's going to be global.
It's everywhere. It's huge. Yeah. If there's you should look on the Global Game Jam site. You can find if there's a site nearby. Again, we recommend game jams all the time. The Global Game Jam 5 years ago to this one actually was the first time that Seth and I duoed a game. And that was Tau Fight of the Gods. Yeah.
5 years ago this weekend.
Yeah.
January of 2012.
And now we're actually sponsoring the jam here in St. Louis. So we gave him a chunk of change to feed people and make shirts and stuff. And as a result, apparently we got a little like 2-minute speaking intro we can do at the beginning. Bot essentially. So
what are we gonna say?
I don't know. I'm gonna go
say it.
I think I'll go deliver, something uplifting about,
the problem is we don't know how many other people are speaking or what they're saying.
I should probably just ask.
So we have to try to come up with some kind of a cool standalone nugget that doesn't need context.
Or you can just wing it. But I think that the other because people sponsor these for different reasons, right? And a lot of it is it's businesses doing it, and so they might be trying to,
business.
Trying to business.
What are we doing? What do we do it for?
We just think it's important
to help keep the event going.
Which means that we don't have to give a shit what anybody else is doing. You just go up and say something so inspiring that everybody is weeping.
You could just get up there and do sort of a Braveheart scream.
Oh my God,
Just get up there and just yell your guts out for 3 minutes.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that's what I'll do. And, but I think it is a really interesting milestone because it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
That essentially this whole thing started rolling. I think we started Butterscotch.
Wait, okay. I want to go back to that point in time.
Okay.
At that point in time, Seth, were you actually programming it? Or was this when you started your programming career?
I had been doing Game Maker programming at that point for like 6 months.
Okay.
I think.
And Sam, had you done any game art yet?
No.
This was your first game art, right?
Oh, no. Yeah, it was my first. It was my first. I've been doing little shitty comics online that were like stick art things because I couldn't figure out how to use Inkscape. So this was my first time doing game art. Yeah.
This was the time where the character had arms that were bananas because Sam couldn't draw arms.
So this is crazy. So that means 5 years ago, this coming weekend was the first jam that led to the development of Butterscotch. Seth had barely been programming at all. Sam had been doing any art. A year ago this weekend, we launched Crashlands.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Crashlands anniversary is the same weekend.
Yeah. Crashlands anniversary is the 21st, which is why the documentary is coming out on that same day.
Yep.
So
that's pretty cool.
It's a good milestone.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah.
Things are happening.
Well, I guess what's happened. So we, in the last 5 years, I think Seth's made an ungodly number of prototypes.
Yeah. About 200.
Probably about 200. We've done a ridiculous number of jams. We got second place in the indie speed run once, and then we got some other award for that last time. But Do You Even Lift? Crashlands got nominated for a DICE award last week, which apparently is very cool.
Apparently,
people have informed us that we should be.
We're
excited
nominated
about
alongside of Clash Royale.
Yep.
Pokemon Go.
Reigns.
I feel like Reigns is our buddy there because it's also a tiny indie studio. What was the other one? Something else there too.
I don't know.
I think something I didn't know about.
Yeah, so we got that one. We have how many players total? We can count pirates for this. Just for
9
fun.
million.
Somewhere around 9 or 10 million.
Pirates, yeah, probably something like that.
It's been a good run,
guys. Pack it up.
Here's to 5 more years.
500 years.
Also, speaking of the Global Game Jam, we did get a question, which I think is a good one, from Space Bat. The question is,
I think it's a new person.
Yeah, the question is, I just registered for the St. Louis Global Game Jam.
Oh, yeah.
So we're going to see them there.
Yeah.
Have fun, Space Bat.
As a first timer without a team, what should I expect and what should I bring?
Ooh, what?
I actually have not been to a global game jam. I've assisted in 2 of them, I believe, with you guys.
Oh, but you never got to come.
When
to
I was
the
in
actual-
Dallas both
right.
times. So this is going to be also my first global game jam.
If you're going to be there all weekend, bring deodorant.
Yes, please, for the love of God.
Because you get 250 people in there. A lot of people literally stay, and this may not be true for all jam sites, but it tends to be the way the Global Game Jam works, as far as I understand, is the venue will be open for 48 straight hours.
Yeah.
And a whole bunch of people are just sitting there sweating and programming and all being all anxious and stuff and eating donuts all day. And man, it just gets, it gets rank.
Yeah, I would say as far as what to plan for, I would highly not recommend that you stay up the whole time, nor that you only get like 5 or 6 hours of sleep.
Plan on a good 7-8 hours.
Yeah, plan on sleeping. And actually,
night.
if you're normally the sort of person who doesn't necessarily eat healthy, or even if you are, make sure you eat very healthy over the course of that thing. Because the reality is most people bulk up on, because they always have like sports drinks and all sorts of delicious candies and things just to hand out that are easy to package up and eat.
Yeah, there's big piles of like diet or like Coca-Cola and
but if you have all that stuff, you're gonna crash super duper hard in the middle of Saturday.
Don't ride the sugar train.
Yeah, just
during the weekend.
Slow and steady. And if this is your first one, it depends on if you're a programmer or an artist. Both of those roles are in extremely high demand. If you are not anything, and by that I mean if you claim you're a designer, which again, designers only make work for people in small game jam senses. They very infrequently are actually able to contribute until like the last day. So if it's a case that you don't actually have a hard skill yet, do not be afraid at all, like we did, of just picking that shit up day one. If you got some time before the jam actually starts and you haven't done any program, pick up GameMaker and run through some tutorials tonight.
The tutorials are really easy and you can make a lot of headway really quickly.
Yeah, and the first game jam I ever did, I did tutorials for 4 hours and then I built a game over a weekend. You could do the same thing. We got plenty of days before Friday hits.
Yep. Yeah, 2.
And if you haven't got any art experience, again, pick up a tool that's really easy to use.
Like
and
Inkscape?
Then go for it. Like Inkscape. Inkscape is extremely forgiving, just like GameMaker is. And that's actually, I think, a huge part of the reason why our studio exists, actually, is because the tools we chose early on were flexible enough to let us just fuck up constantly without having it be catastrophic. So definitely check those things out. And then as far as when you get there, there's going to be St. Louis actually is one of the biggest global game jam sites in the country. I think we beat out Facebook last year. Like 270 people.
There's going to be
shit.
250 to 300 people there.
There's going to be a ton of people. Some people come with pre-made teams, which is what we recommend. If you are in St. Louis and you're looking for a team before the game jam starts, I would actually recommend posting in the St. Louis Game Dev Co-op Facebook group.
Yeah.
And just say, hey, here's my skills. I'm super excited. You know, be a cheerful person, etc. And see if anybody will pick you up. Because having someone who you already know you're working with before you go in just makes it more enjoyable, I think, to a large degree, even if you literally met them a day before. Just have a phone call with them, touch base, say, hey, I'm going to be doing this. I'll bring my laptop. We can go work at a Panera if you want to get the fuck out of the game jam site at some point, etc.
Yep.
And then beyond that, just be aware that the larger your team size is, the less good of a time you're going to have.
Guaranteed.
Guaranteed.
3 is our highest
max.
recommendation.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond
4,
that, it's definitely too many.
I would say 4 is okay if you have someone who basically self-declares that they are just there to do production stuff. And that by that I mean
meaning they won't give you more work.
Yeah, they're going to support you. So if you're like, oh, Jesus Christ, we need a USB drive. And they're like, I got it. And then they'll go run out. Or if you're like, okay,
because there will be those moments where all of a sudden you need stuff. And
if they, if you say, oh no, we need to get our page up and running, because you have to actually make a page for your game on the Global Game Jam site, which by the way, always crashes every year.
And they could be building in QA testing and doing other kinds of
basically
stuff.
having someone who's a production manager / runner.
Yeah.
They're just like, they just go get.
That would be the only
things
4th
in
person
order.
I would ever put on a project. Otherwise, be very lean, because especially it can be a more impactful thing if it's just you and another person, because you'll get another person very well. And on top of that, you get to make half of it. Which is just like you get to walk away being like, I made a game. Like I made a game because I have 50% stake.
Yeah, if you're there with 10 people, you barely even helped.
Well, and one of the biggest things we'll see with these really big teams is a jam game by its nature has to be small. Otherwise you can't build the whole thing. And having a huge team means that you're going to have a tendency to try to get everybody contributing in some
you
way.
want to give people work to do.
Yeah.
Right?
So what you do is then you'll take sort of a small thing and you'll break it up into even more tiny pieces. And then the challenge becomes just coordinating how to pull those pieces together and how to keep people on task and stuff. And it just becomes a nightmare scenario.
Right. So one thing I would also recommend is just before you come to the jam, get a Dropbox folder set up for yourself. You can easily share, even have the link ready to just give to whoever your team is, so that you don't have to worry about all this file sharing nonsense, and there's already a structure built in place for it.
Try to get your infrastructure in place first. And you can also save yourself an enormous amount of heartache by using Git or some other.
If you know how to use it.
If you know how to use it. If you don't know how to use it, don't
do it
this
for
weekend.
Just keep it basic.
Keep it basic. But if you do know how to use it, or if you want to take a few days beforehand and see if you can learn how to use it, you can save yourself an enormous amount of trouble, because then when things completely fall apart, you can just go back.
They will.
And they will fall
definitely
apart.
will. So yeah, that's just some pro tips about game jams.
We got plenty more, but I think that's a
good start.
It's a good start.
Yeah, so I guess
as far as
tiny team, keep your scope as tiny as possible.
Stay healthy.
Juice the fuck out of your game. It's much better if the game looks and feels really good.
Even if
it has almost nothing in it, than if it has a whole bunch of stuff and it all looks like shit. And
yeah, and also our recommendation as far as genre goes, if you're making a game for the first time, make an action game where the player is an individual actor in the world. So think something simple like Asteroids, or Mario, or a runner or something like that. And that the obstacles that the player is faced with are very simple things.
Don't have AI.
They don't have a lot of AI, if any. And then the goal of the player is very simple. Because you can start with that as a little nugget, and if you get that feeling really good, then you can start adding cool stuff to it. But if you don't have that, then you don't have anything.
And I will say a general timeline you should aim for is that you should have a prototype done on Friday night before you go to bed.
Yep.
And by that I mean
something's moving around.
And it does whatever the rough idea was of your mechanic. By the middle point of Saturday, you should have a failure state in your game, so that, in other words, the game is now a game by the middle of Saturday, where someone can play it and lose. That's essentially what a game is.
Yeah.
By the end of the day on Saturday, that whole piece that you built should be polished up and looking real fucking cool. And then if you have time for Sunday, adding anything else as far as content, extra goals, any loop structures, that's when that stuff comes in right at the end. So
and make sure you keep a separate copy of the thing you finish on Saturday night.
Yeah, in case you completely,
if you're not using version control, so that you can't destroy it on Sunday.
So, but I will say, if you're there for the first time, you definitely won't hit those timelines.
Yeah, probably not.
But just understand that the order of operations is still there. Where there's sort of like there's a minimum viable state where the mechanics of the game are there, they feel good, then you get to polish in and that kind of stuff. So just don't blow your scope out.
Make a menu screen.
Yeah, it's not a game until you click
title screen
until the player has to click play to play it.
And for some reason, it feels amazing when you're like, oh yeah, I made a game, and then you show it to your friends, and they're like, wow, this has a menu. And you're like,
and a name,
it just
and
has
a
play.
title and
just
everything.
And if the menu feels a little bit alive, if there's just a little bit of movement, then
so good.
Yeah.
Yep.
If all you could pull off is getting a menu that moves around and feels good, that's actually
you're,
okay.
You're miles above and beyond.
Global Menu Jam.
Global Menu Jam
2017.
Yeah.
Cool.
All right. So other news for the week is we've been pushing forward on next game dev for what we are still calling Quadrupus 2, although it's moving further and further in a different direction.
Something else entirely.
So what we're doing for this, and I think this does lead to an important point about the way that we build games, which is that we do it in a very atypical fashion. We do not do game design documents. We don't pre-plan stuff. We just ride the wave. Basically, we start with an idea and we just keep iterating on it and keep throwing stuff in there. And whatever's fun goes in the game. Whatever's not fun gets ripped out of it.
And I think we can. So we'll say exactly what we're sort of aiming to do right now with this particular title, which is to build what is essentially a hack and slash city builder.
Yeah.
Pet tamer.
Well, there's a shitload of other stuff going. So what we're actually going to do, though, is that, as Seth was alluding to, the fact is we don't use game design documents or try to do any sort of high level stuff at all at the outset, because we truly don't know how most of these systems work. So,
but also then what you've done is front loaded all the design work and created an engineering problem that you now need to go solve. And engineering problems they're structured and rigid, and they aren't nearly as much fun.
That's true.
Well, and you also end up
creative challenges.
to me, it's also the intention is to avoid the problem of having a vision.
Yeah.
Which sinks so many game projects where you'll have somebody go, I want to make a game that's like this, like it has to do this very specific set of things. And what if one of those things doesn't work with the whole thing, or it's just not interesting or whatever? And you have sort of your creative director or lead designer, and they just will not move on from that vision. And you end up making a game that for some reason has to incorporate that idea, even if it's bad.
Right.
So this is also part of the risk of talking about the thing you're making early on in development, because then all of a sudden other people
get excited
about that thing you lay out. And now that starts to become sort of the vision externally, pressed on you for what the game is.
Which is why we've talked about this is sort of internally, is that we do want to talk about what we're working on the podcast, but with the full disclaimer that we don't have an end target. We have some ideas of what we want to do, and we're working on it each week. And so then each week we can talk about what's been happening.
Let it evolve.
But with no promises, and hopefully everybody listening understands that, we may talk about a super cool idea that sounds badass, but then it turns out to be infeasible or doesn't fit or whatever.
Well, so an interesting example of this, what our strategy is actually for this game is to jam out each one of the subsystems in the game. So yes, it's sort of base level as a hack and slash sort of idea, but we want to do class-based stuff. So think about something like Diablo or Gauntlet. But we also want the city builder element to be present. So in other words, town planning is going to be an important thing. We have no idea how those fit together. We've also never built either a hack and slash or a town building game. Quadrupus Rampage is more like a brawler because there's not really anything going on as far as the, you're not
There's
really.
no character customization. There's not much in the way of sort of like stats-based
You
progression.
can't play it any differently, I guess, is probably the biggest
Every
point.
person who plays Quadrupus Rampage plays it the same way.
And so our goal is to make a game that has a cool enough class-based system that you can essentially specialize. You can be like, kind of like how you had a necromancer in Diablo 2 who could be either a zoo necromancer who just had a bunch of pets. It could be a golem necromancer who just had one really terrifying golem. They could be a corpse exploding necromancer or a dagger poison person, whatever. So we want to add some variety.
That's just one class.
That's one class
that
you could do all this stuff with. And so what we actually did over the past couple of days is we prototyped a hack and slash game, and we learned a shitload of stuff about how it actually works from a design standpoint that we did not realize, despite the fact that we've all played a lot of these games before.
It just goes to show that playing games is not the
same.
same as studying them. Or
so what we're going to do is over the course of the next couple of days, we'll be essentially rounding out this hack and slash game that we built to further explore the ideas of the class-based system and a few other aspects that we really need to understand before we move into the next part.
Can we talk about the character that we have in there right now? Just for
it's
funsies?
a blabarg. It is a blabarg, which has been mentioned before.
It's sort of like a walrus person, kind of.
He's got a tusk stash, mustache.
These two tusks that go off to the side under his nose, like a mustache.
I want to keep it under wraps for the most part, but I think
you mean like what? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, what actually happens there. But the overall approach that we're actually taking with this one, because we want to build a bigger game. The problem we recognize we had with Crashlands is that we did not know how crafting games work. We did not know how large scale RPGs work or character customization works because we hadn't built it before. And the result was that because of the way we built the whole game and sort of our lack of understanding as we went into it, that the game ended up being way less flexible in terms of us being able to add and sort of diversify player options as the game progressed, which is basically the one negative note of feedback we've gotten about Crashlands overall, is that yes, it's a huge game. It's got a great story and all this stuff, but the reality is that the loop structure, the sort of overall underlying gameplay, doesn't really change from
I guess
halfway
you
through.
could say it's pretty linear.
It's very linear.
What you get to do, like you can choose to use like a flamethrower versus bombs or whatever, but it's
kind of all the same at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So what we want to do is do better about that. And with this idea going forward, that what we're going to do is prototype in order, essentially the actual game systems that are going to be present in this next game, so that we have a really deep understanding of how all the systems work, and then build it after that. So first is this hack and slash.
The fun part with these prototypes is these are well, I would say they're more like jam versions of the final game systems, where they are fully polished. They have all the special effects. They have all the art. They're being built under the same technical constraints as the final game. So isometric tiles with the same scaling, same color palettes, all that stuff. So it's basically like miniature versions of what's going to be in the final game, but still using all the same tech. So we can just slap it all together in the end and stitch together the game system.
So the rough order we're going in is hack and slash, which should be done by the end of this week. and then city building, which I've never done before. Probably take next week to
What
do.
that means, we don't know.
No idea.
We have to learn.
And then the next one was going to be, we're going to hit the fishing game. And then after that is the pet battle game. What was our fifth
Farming?
one? Oh yeah, and the farming.
Yeah.
I think that's
which is all to say that if you thought Crashlands had lots of systems,
just you fucking
well, yeah, because if you think about like, so there's a game called Ridiculous Fishing by Vlambeer. It's super, super fun. And it's purely a fishing game, but it's also a shooting fish game, right? Like you whip the fish up into the air and then you blast them out of the air. And for some reason you get money for that.
Cause why not?
because it's awesome.
Because you're a fisherman. So basically just thinking about the fact that in Crashlands, our fishing game, you know, in my opinion, it's what I would consider a quote, a mini game.
I wouldn't even call it a game.
Feels game-ish, but it's more like an activity because you can't really fuck it up that much.
Yeah.
And there's no loops, there's no expansion. Like when you fish in the very first time, it's the same as when you fish for the very last time. And so we want to take the concept of having these smaller game systems, but not have them be smaller, have them actually be really deep and interesting and have all kinds of cool stuff you can do. And the only way to do that is through this rapid jam thing where we develop these as fully standalone games that could stand on their own, but then merge them into the main game.
And so the goal here is to make a game where, yes, it's sort of the core action component is this sort of hack and slash idea, at least for now. But if you so chose that you as a player could say, forsake the life of a hack and slash murderer and just farm and fish. Just farm and fish to complete the goal.
Probably do that. I don't know. We'll see.
Who knows?
I think it would stand to reason that the most interesting stuff would come out of participating in all of the gameplay.
Of course.
Because having the game systems interact with each other in all kinds of cool ways is where that's where the cool
magic
stuff. That's what
you want to have that opportunity where someone could be like, I'm going to play Skyrim like a pacifist. Right. And make everything else kill each other. I'm not going to get my hands dirty. You know, like that's incredible. That's an incredibly flexible design system there that lets people do it and still have fun. So, that's it.
So that's kind of where we are with our current game progress, and it's coming along super well.
Oh, that's fun.
Also, we use a text editor in house.
Oh yeah,
called atom.io.
It's atom.io.
atom.io. And we highly recommend it because of how flexible it is. And one of the things you can do with it, Sam,
so Adam talked about this, I think a couple months ago when he got onto atom.io. I've still been using Notepad++ to just sort of track my day-to-day tasks and stuff. But we were talking about today over breakfast during a reflection period, and Adam suggested actually using this thing because you can make everything prettier. So you pick it up, and then I remembered vaguely that there's a time when Adam showed me a video of someone exploding the words on their text editor. Like as they typed, the screen was shaking, there was like glitter flying off of them. And so
particle effects.
I asked him about it when we got back to the office, and it's called Awesome Mode. It's a package you can install into this text editor, and it makes it so that as you type,
you build combo points.
There's a combo points thing at the top right. So as you type, it's counting, and there's like a decay, so if you stop typing for a while, then you lose your combos. And then at any certain number of combo points, you can have it essentially like announce something to you. Someone's like, wow, what the fuck? So as
it's like
I'm just
having a little
stuff,
hype man.
Oh, it's incredible. And then I have a little bit of screen shake on there. So as I'm typing, it's like, wow, it just feels amazing. I don't think it would work very well, obviously, for like code, because I would not be able to focus.
Or for long form writing.
Right. But
for crushing a to-do list, though.
Oh, it's great.
Can you plug the extension just specifically into certain files? So you can be like, when I'm working on my to-do list.
There's a hotkey just to turn on and off.
Oh, okay, cool.
Control-Alt-O, I believe. But yeah, so
O for awesome.
Awesome. If any of you use a Notepad or Notepad-esque program, switch to atom.io and install the Awesome Dash Mode plugin. You can modify all the parameters. You can make it a little less obtrusive if you'd like, or more. But it is, I don't know, especially because we have mechanical keyboards and all of us type at like 120 words per minute. And so it just feels appropriate.
When you crush the keyboard and hear it clack and then something explodes on it.
Oh my God. It just
like, I am really typing. Right?
Yeah. It makes you feel great.
Yeah.
So get on it.
So do that, atom.io. All right, let's get to some questions.
Okay.
These questions come from podcast.bscotch.net. If you ask with a Butterscotch ID, then we will give you a pretty fucking cool copy of the Butterscotch avatar.
If we answer your question.
If we answer your question. If we don't, then I guess it's too bad.
Give you one.
Space Bat just got one. So hey,
I will say though, this week we had 73 questions.
We're gonna delete a bunch of them.
You guys are crushing on the questions. Actually, a lot of these are really good too.
And they're almost all amazing, except for a couple of them are just really bad. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but whatever. All right, so so we're actually going to probably implementing a time limitation where if a question hasn't been answered in a few weeks, it'll probably just drop off. We used to do that, but then we hit kind of a lull, and then we started running out of questions. But now we're getting overwhelmed. So you know, we gotta do what we gotta do. All right, so question number 1 comes from Mia Kitty,
Number one Australia fan.
Number 1 Australia fan.
Yeah.
A few episodes ago, you were talking about the stare ghost. Is this the only ghostly encounter any of you all have had? What about the encounters of the alien kind? Anything spooky you can tell us about?
I've encountered 10 aliens.
Adam's encountered they focus on Adam.
Yeah, I had to sign an NDA though with the aliens, so I can't talk about it.
Non-disclosure of alien
NDA?
information.
Yeah, it was an NDAA.
Okay, so Adam can't talk about it other than mentioning
guys.
that happened. We grew up right next to an old graveyard from.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that.
From
It's like a pioneer graveyard.
it was from
yeah.
the gold rush days, wasn't it?
Wait, gold rush? There was no gold rush in
No, like people
Iowa.
passed through.
Oh, yeah.
People in the early-ish or like in the mid 1800s.
Passed.
Yeah, well, in the mid 1800s, people on the East Coast were like, "I'm gonna go to California," and then
That's what they do today.
Thus began a 30-year journey where they had to go on foot, and then like 40 of them would die on the way, and they had to like bury their friends and family,
It's like
and
the
get
people
killed by animals.
It's like the people who got there weren't the people who made the decision to go there.
Yeah, because they had to have
Which is
kids.
kinda common.
It's
Yeah.
kind of like if we wanted to send a spaceship like to another star or something.
Yeah.
Then what we're actually doing is sending our like great grandkids to those stars.
Yeah, so that's basically how it was just to like go to California.
Yeah.
you know,
But I remember that
back
because
then.
there's a bunch of baby graves.
There's a lot of baby
which are, like,
graves
the
next to our
freakiest-
house. we
because
grew up.
they're so old. They're just 1800s, early 1800s. I'm pretty sure, something
Yeah.
like that. And so you go and you walk over there, and you could easily just not notice that these things are in the ground.
You could be like stepping on a baby grave.
Yeah.
because they're just these little sort of like stone tablet
hand
things
carved.
that have been chiseled.
Ugh.
You know, and then they just
Spooky.
buried it in the ground.
Very
And
spooky. Oh, I'll tell you, I don't think so. I haven't had
it's spooky.
any. We have the spooky stuff, but I haven't had any other sort of weird experiences besides that damn ghost at Dad's house. But aside from that, I will say I have performed spooky things to freak people out. Well, the best of which
Like
is that.
exorcisms.
Did you ever go to Blue Point in Iowa?
Blue Point. No.
Blue Point.
I don't even know
So
what that is.
this was a thing that started happening when I was in high school. Everyone's like, "Oh my god, Blue Point's like the scariest place." It's one of these old graveyards. It's like on someone's property. So of course,
Yeah,
as
so
a
you do
teenager, you have to go
trespass.
trespass.
Yeah.
So
Which makes it
Teenagers-
spookier.
Teenagers are great at trespassing.
So what we did, I think it was my senior year of school. So it's a terrible idea. Nobody do this, but we went out there with a group of friends. Everyone's getting all spooked out. I think we listened to spooky stories like on the way out there. So everyone's already tingling. You know, everyone's like, "Oh god!" And we go out there, and it was me and one other friend who knew, and then there were 4 people with us who did not know that we had also installed 4 of our friends in the woods behind the cemetery with a weed whacker.
Classic teen move.
So in this graveyard,
weed whacker.
it's like it's not huge. It's like a block.
Is it a weed whacker that goes? Ooh?
No, but it sounds like a chainsaw. Is the idea.
Oh, I
so I think what we did, we were able to text the people who were in the woods, and we had the people who were sort of escorted them in, and we're like, "Oh my god, it's so spooky!" Telling spooky stories, and then there's this really creepy grave that is a cradle in this place, which is terrifying.
Another baby grave.
Another baby grave, and
The baby graves.
and so someone was like, I think one of the people dared someone to like climb in it. They're like, apparently you can hear the souls of the screaming people if you lay in this thing. And so the person started climbing in. And at that moment, the weed whacker goes off in the woods and like screams of banshee-like nature. And I swear to God, that was like the fastest I've seen anybody move in my life. Everyone's just like, "Oh!" The person who like was, clambering into this tomb essentially goes just bolting out. We run, and everyone, I think me and my friend were laughing, of course, because we're sadistic teenagers. But then we suddenly realized like the other 4 people who were with us were clearly just like terrified out of their, like just bawling uncontrollably, guys and ladies alike. Just everyone's like, oh my God, we're going to die. So we dove into the car and drove off and let them know that it was a joke. We met up with everybody afterwards. But
it would have been crazy if you were like, oh yeah, we put 4 people in the woods with weed whackers, but then you heard 4 more weed whackers. They're going to whack our weed so good.
Right. But yeah, so that's the only other spooky thing, but it's just being spooky, being a spookster. Grave defiling teenager, because that's apparently what they do.
Yeah.
So.
It is a great way to get shot, though.
It is
to trespass.
I think we might have gotten
on rural private property.
Oh yeah, I think someone started like coming at us with a 4-wheeler. That's why everyone dove into the car and we just drove away really fast and they chased us down the
many
that was very scary.
Many teenagers from our neck of the woods, from central Iowa, have stories about doing these things and almost getting shot.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because the thing that everybody was afraid of was the weed whacker ghosts.
Oh yeah.
What they should have been afraid of
the real person
was the old dude,
the owner of the property.
Yeah.
Be like, what are these people doing with weed whackers on my property? Yeah, that's not good. All right. So next question, we got kind of a combo question.
Okay.
So the first question comes from Degeki. What is the most significant life view change after being confronted with the fleeting fragility of life? Sam. Or any other event heretofore unmentioned. So that is the first question. And then the second question is from Alan Falcon, who said the goal of Crashlands was to make something that matters. Success. Do you have a similar goal for Quadrupus 2? For some reason, I feel like these questions connect.
Yeah, I think so I did a lot of reading when especially when I first got diagnosed, and I think I've recommended it on the podcast before, but there's a book called Man's Search for Meaning by Viktor Frankl, who's a dude who went through a Holocaust camp, and, watched people get exterminated and then also simply die in the camp by essentially giving up, because of course they're under these extreme conditions. And one of the really interesting things that came out of the book was that he says something along the lines of, when people are placed into a situation where they're experiencing a ridiculous amount of hardship, the moment that they give up is when they actually die. Their body might linger for a while, but they'll be dead within a couple of days. And he saw this over and over in this camp where people are, of course, being tortured and all this other stuff. And it was the people who somehow managed to keep this idea going forward that they were going to get out of it and it's going to be okay. And so I managed to hold on to that ended up living afterwards. And I've talked to our dad about this a few times because he's a surgeon. He's been around a lot of death in his time. And he essentially confirmed this fact. He's like, some people, if things are going really, really bad, you can see when they give up, and then very, very quickly they pass. Like when they deteriorate extremely quickly. And there was that phrase, give up the ghost, right? Which essentially means leave your body. And so I think reading that book was really, really interesting because it sort of put a lot of the ideas and the ideals of hope in a really horrible situation into context, because especially when it's all you got, if you don't manage to cultivate it and don't manage to surround yourself with people who help you cultivate it, you can get into real dangerous territory real quick. And as far as the Crashlands stuff and, making a thing that mattered, I think, we managed to do it with Crashlands, which is good. And I think the truth is that going forward, it's like, we don't want to make anything that doesn't matter. I think is basically what the goal is. It's just, don't do shit that doesn't matter anymore. And it's much easier to do that when you are unaware. And some people may think that they're totally aware of, like, oh yeah, I'm aware of my mortality, like I'm doing it. But if it hasn't been checked before.
Well, I think it's a question of sort of its impending nature.
Yeah.
Like knowing that it's a remote possibility is one thing, but knowing that it's incredibly likely and soon is a totally different thing.
It puts it right in your face, right?
Yeah.
So I do, and I have a PET scan tomorrow, which I guess is today, podcast time. Again, to check.
When was the last one?
6 months ago. So we're going to go get reminded about that again tomorrow. Hopefully everything's good. I expect it is. But it's one of those things that if you've gone through something that is basically some sort of trauma that gets to stay with you, which is like cancer, or if you lose a loved one or something like that is very close to you, you don't get to get over that per se. You sort of get to put it in the background. But I do think there's the big life sort of vision shift for me has been mainly along the lines of focusing on making things matter. And what I mean by that is, and this is what Viktor Frankl suggests, is the meaning of life is just to make meaning in your life. And that means that if there's stuff that other people might consider cheesy or dumb that you do, if you're like, oh yeah, so, I planned this big event for my best friend when he got home from airport or something like that. Or like I showed up with a sign. when someone came at the airport just to make them like feel good. Those little extra things are really the things that people care about and really matter at the end of the day. And there's a lot of people who sort of, I guess, get real cynical and kind of like shit on the idea of putting extra effort into, or like just into
pretty much
things.
anything.
Yeah. But I think the reality is at the end of the day, you're going to remember those things above everything else. And if you're not participating in the manufacture of those for yourself and for others, then yeah, I think you're wasting your time, frankly. Doesn't have to be incredible. I mean, you could leave a Post-it note with a drawing on someone's freaking door, and that's just a fun way to start your day, right?
Mm-hmm. Maybe don't do that to complete strangers because you might freak the fuck out.
Right. Hello. Yeah, no, but I think just participate. I guess that's what it is. Like, and the weird
be
thing
alive
is,
and give a shit.
Yeah, I think the weird thing is that we've talked about this a bunch with regard to how what the internet does to people, and I think it for some reason makes it easier to not actually participate in your life and more so to be a spectator in other people's lives.
It allows you to participate in a way that actually is just spectating.
Yeah, it
makes
you seem
feels like participation, right? So that you end up just empty, but it makes you have to chase it more, right? Because you're doing a thing that seems like you're participating, so you just got to do more of it, and it's just chasing this empty hollowness.
Yeah. So yeah, I think if there's something that you care about, then just do something about it. Mm-hmm. That's pretty much it.
Hell yeah, man!
Participate in your fucking life because you're gonna die. That's it.
Guaranteed.
And so we do. So then I guess we do have a similar goal for Quadrupus too. Then.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. So we're gonna keep doing stuff that matters.
Yeah.
Well, but it's also building a studio, right? Building a studio, building a culture, being able to hire people and like employ them is awesome, right? And so we get to leverage something that mattered to a bunch of people and to us, which was Crashlands, into something that we get to build this long-term thing that can sustain other people even, and that can build even more things that people actually give a shit about. So yeah, that's just the plan now.
It's super cool. All right. Next question comes from Zuby.
Zuby dooby doo.
Zuby. Zuby 311 says, my fun hobby is to create games.
What about his unfun hobbies?
He's got a whole bunch of them, but his fun one is to create games. His or her, I should say. My worry is if I started doing it full time, it would become a job and lose its fun. After years of game making, do you guys find making games fun or just a job?
Before we answer this, do you think this is in any way related to the kind of question where there are some people who are worried that if they start working out, they'll like get too buff?
That's my favorite one.
I didn't even know this was a thing until I read it in a book somewhere where there's like a common like worry that people had. And I was like,
someone's like, I'm overweight now, but if I start, I'm going to instantly be a bodybuilder.
Yeah.
That's just, I don't want to.
That's gross.
And my clothes won't fit.
I don't want to go down this path.
A while back, I think it was like a couple of years ago, I was teaching somebody something about Game Maker. And they're like, well, hold on. I don't want to become an expert. And I was like, you're not going to. You can't
Excuse
just
me, sir?
accidentally.
Sir, I need you to calm down. You are very, very dumb right now.
It's something that takes an incredible amount of time and
if you're purposely trying to make sure you don't do something too well, you're doing that.
Let's unpack that for a sec. So the idea of saying to someone who's teaching you something when you don't know what you're doing,
take it down a notch,
right?
I don't want to understand.
I don't want to understand. I just want to do. We've talked about this before about self-handicapping, right?
Yeah.
I don't think this
is that even what this is. This is something else.
No, this is unrelated to Zuby's point, but I think I want to point this expert thing out.
I don't even think this is self-handicapping. I think this is just wanting an end product without the process, right? It's just like that. Like you just want. It's like, yeah, I want to be a novelist, but I don't want to have to understand good grammar, and I don't want to read books, right?
you got to understand that there's a subset of things that belong to the parent thing, right?
Yeah.
So being a novelist also involves.
Also, here's a question: why would you not want to be an expert?
I don't,
because I think that this is the kind of thing like where
this is what I'm trying to figure out.
Yeah, well, I think it's because to a lot of people, like being an expert means you had to work, right?
I don't think I think maybe it's the fact that you have to give up stuff. You know what I mean?
Maybe
because they're like, well, I don't.
You can't just tangentially be an expert at something. But I think more to the question.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, go ahead.
So,
just what the fuck
is if you take something that you're doing for fun and turn it into your career. What's that like? What's it about?
Well, so I think
you should read the E-Myth.
Oh yeah.
So there's a book called
pause this podcast right now, grab a pen, write down the E-myth. Go look it up, buy it, and read it tonight.
It's incredible. It will explain a lot of this, I think.
Yeah.
For you.
Yeah.
But I think as far as we're concerned, making games is still super duper fun. I don't know about you guys. Love the shit out of it. Even the part where we're like, oh, we need 700 chairs. Sure. I'm down now.
You mean
I'm down to clam.
chairs to make inside of a game?
Yeah.
Or just chairs in general.
I think all of the administrative overhead that's come from making games and selling them and doing these things successfully and having a studio and all that stuff, I don't find that particularly enthralling as a thing. So there are unintended consequences of pursuing work that is your love, which is that it's not that at least in my case, I would say it's not that the love for the craft has eroded. It's just that it's been actually blocked in a lot of ways by a lot of other shit that's come from doing well with the craft.
Well, that's exactly it. Is if you're successful at it, if you're pursuing it as a career, right? Then it's going to generate other stuff that isn't that thing, and there's other stuff that you have to do.
Well, just as a simple example, right now, if you're making games for fun, presumably what that means is you're not selling them, right? You're like, oh, it's just fun to make them, right? As soon as you make $1 selling games, you got to file some taxes, right? So now you got to start documenting your income.
Some customer support to deal with because that person's going to be like, hey,
that one person who bought your game, they're going to have a bug.
I sideloaded it and I hacked everything and I want you to fix it.
Yeah. So
I stole it first and then I liked it. So then I decided to buy it, but it was on top of my hacked, stolen version and I want my $1 back.
Yeah. So
real life stories.
So I think there's a bigger question, which is, let's say you are working a part-time job or a full-time job that isn't the fun thing that you like to do, like making games. And so you're spending 8 hours a day doing this other stuff that you're not that pumped about, right? If you turned making games into your career, you would not be spending that full time making games. There would still be a subset of that time that you'd be doing stuff that, again, you're not that pumped about, like documenting your expenses and talking to an attorney about end user license agreements or whatever, but you're still going to be doing a lot more of making games.
Well, it's all in service of.
It's part of that bigger picture.
Yeah. So I think I always think about it kind of like a long-term relationship or marriage, right? There's plenty of stuff you got to do. Like, oh, now we got to pick the paint for this house that we got, or oh God, we have to go grocery shopping.
Well, just being an adult, gives you responsibilities and chores.
Correct, but I think it's true, but I think it's also the pursuing of a particular thing is never going to be able to be pure in the sense that you can't just go get only the thing that you want or need out.
Well, the only way you can is if it's a
person.
hobby.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, if you don't fully commit
or
to
a
it,
fling.
Right. Yeah. If you don't fully commit to a thing, that's the only way that you can purely get the fun part out of it and nothing else because you aren't taking it far enough to actually be exposed to the full spectrum of things about it.
I have a differing opinion.
Okay.
Which is that by being able to throw your entire self into a thing, like making games for a living, right? Then now you get to think about that thing all the time.
Yeah, it's amazing.
As a consequence, you now have to think about a lot more pieces than you otherwise would have had to, right? And if you just for some reason just like hate the idea of thinking about those pieces, I actually just think you're wrong and you've got a hang up. And you just need to get over that shit. Right? Because by throwing your entire being into a thing, then you actually get to do the parts that are even more fun. Then
you get to go deep.
You get to go as deep as is humanly possible into that thing. So if you're making games for a hobby, like that's great. That's fun. That's awesome. Right?
Super fun.
But you can't make the kind of games that you could if you were working with a team, right? Or if you had a company behind you where you needed administrative support because you were successful, right? And you didn't get to go through being in the trenches either by yourself, which of course is anxiety inducing, that kind of stuff. But it's also amazing to come out on the other side of when you go through the trenches trying to deal with how do you make a thing successful or how do you work with a team to create a product or whatever. And I come on the other side, you got to just do something amazing that you couldn't have done by yourself. And hobbies are mostly things you do by yourself. And if they're not, they're things you do without being able to rely on anybody else because nobody has any real skin in the game because it's just a hobby. It's just for fun. Right. So I think,
you get to do it for quote fun.
But that means you're barely doing it
in the same sense that like watching TV is fun, right? It's a passive activity that you're not super engaged in. There's nothing at stake. There's nothing at risk, and you can't go very deep into much of it.
So I mean, ramping it up in terms of your dedication to it will necessarily ramp up how deep you are into it. And if that's the thing that actually excites you at the end of the day, then you're good to go. Like working full time on games will not be a problem for you.
Yeah.
Because
the question shouldn't be like, do I just want to do this thing for fun with no consequences?
Mhm.
Or, oh my God, I don't want to add consequences. Now it'll be a job. Right. The question is, do I actually love the fuck out of doing this thing so that if I tackle it with my entire being, that all of the other stuff it requires me to do is stuff that I will now go gladly take care of.
Mhm.
Right. Because the answer is just no. Then you actually don't really care about that thing anyway.
Right.
You know?
Well, I mean, you don't care about the
you don't care about it
business
enough.
as a whole. Yeah.
Well,
It's like
yeah,
you still totally care about making games. I don't think
But
it's
you can find other ways to do it. You don't need to form your own business to make games for a living, right?
Right.
You can
build.
polish up your skills until you're hireable by a company, and then go
Hop into another studio.
and let them take care of all the bullshit while you do
Right.
the thing you care about. Of course,
Yeah.
now you're constrained to do what they want you to do, right? But
But it has other benefits then.
it's got other benefits.
There's always a trade-off. Our next question comes from Degeki. Again, Degeki's
got some good questions.
Having listened to 90% of the podcasts in a few weeks, I've gotten a compressed view of 22 months of your lives. How does it feel to know that strangers know you in this way?
Well, I mean, we also have the documentary out now, so
Yeah, it's all getting pretty weird.
it's getting real fucking weird because you guys get to watch home videos. So
We dumped a whole pile of home videos on.
Well, I think it's also the case though that we're very candid about stuff that's going on and very transparent actually about stuff that's going on. So I think the only weird thing about it is the fact that it's asymmetrical, because the truth is that basically anybody we meet, we behave the same way around. And this is an interesting thing that I don't think is necessarily common for everybody, but we don't have multiple faces. And I don't think it's a bad thing. Some people have like a really professional air that they carry at work. Some people have like more of a hilarious sort of broy vibe when they hang out with their buddies. Some people,
they have, locker room talk, for example.
Oh God. Yeah. So the point is that some people are different people in many, many different scenarios.
By the way, don't ever fucking try a locker room talk with us.
Oh yeah.
We will not participate.
That's happened so many times.
It's happened to all of us and we fucking hate it.
The guy comes up, he's like, I want to bond with you by objectifying that woman over there. And I'm like,
Go away.
Why? Could you not? Let's talk about sports ball or something, please.
No, let's not talk about sports.
But yeah, so I think the weird thing about it is the asymmetry. Because the truth is, if we met any of you one-on-one and had sort of just like kept in touch for the last 22 months, you know the same things. It's just that we would actually be able to have a conversation with you about stuff that you got going on as opposed to just whatever the fuck has been happening.
It is weird though, if you do meet somebody who has been listening to all the podcasts, like they do know a lot of your ideas about things.
Yeah.
And so if you're talking to somebody and you don't know what they know, and then they'll ask you a question about something and you'll start being like, oh yeah, we did this thing. And they'll be like, hold on, I listened to that.
Oh yeah, it's happened a couple times.
Yeah. So that's
a little weird. It becomes a weird sort of information asymmetry.
Yeah, actually, I honestly think it's the weirdest case is when, so like I have a close friend from college who like we keep up maybe like once a month. We'll chat for a few hours, right? But that's about it. But he listens to the podcast in large part so he can like kind of keep up with what's going on. So that means that every time I do talk with him, it's this deal, right? He already knows a whole bunch of stuff, right? And so we have to kind of get past the point of like knowing
you need to figure out what he knows,
right?
so you can talk about the stuff you haven't talked about.
So to me, that's actually because when I talk to somebody who I don't really know, who I know is a podcast listener, for example, like what happens when I go to some of the local dev events and stuff, then I kind of get a sense. I'm like, okay, so now I kind of know what I can ask about because I don't know this person yet, which means I can just talk about other stuff now.
But on the plus side, it gives you an opportunity, since they know everything that we've been talking about, then you can just ask them stuff and learn about them, and then they can just talk.
Yeah, so it's not actually a problem. It's just it adds this kind of
it means you have to lay down the parameters of the relationship before you start talking. Be like, do you listen to the podcast?
right.
What do you know about me? Yeah. All right, so I'm going to do one quick last question before we call it a day. This question comes from Spike Guy. Again, it's another podcast question about the podcast. Spike Guy says, I just discovered your podcast and I love it. It's hilarious and I want it all.
Okay.
To catch up, do you think that I should start from episode 1 and work my way up? Or do you think I should listen to the episodes in reverse order and why?
I will say the audio quality in the earlier ones is terrible.
Yeah, I would skip the first maybe like 4 or 5 probably because that's where the audio kind of stabilizes. Unless you can bear
I think about episode maybe in like 15 is when
that's where it gets good. Like the audio gets good quality around like 15, but we got new mics and
it's not terrible.
It gets not terrible.
Yeah, well, here's an interesting. So I listened to My Brother and Me. It's a podcast also by 3 brothers, but it's an advice podcast, and they've been doing it since 2010 or something, and they do it weekly. So they're now pushing episode 300 or something. And I started listening to it a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And when I started listening to it, I was at the end. I was at the most recent ones, and I was like, maybe I should do this. Maybe I should go back to the beginning and start listening. But I realized that, over the course of the years, people change. Their ideas change, how funny they are, just how they talk about things. And in the case of that particular crew, over the course of their years of doing advice, at the beginning of their stuff, they were a lot more judgmental of the people who wrote in. They were a little bit more crass and, a little bit more rough around the edges and rude and stuff. And as they got older, as they did the show more and stuff, they became a lot more open and more accepting of people, and just like whatever people want to do, they're just like, yeah, just do your thing.
I think it seems the reason that
changed a lot.
Yeah, it seems the reason that the podcast would be hopefully better
over
later.
Time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
the problem is you go to the beginning, you're like, oh, this isn't that good.
Yeah. I would say reverse order. Because why not?
Now, I would say this is an interesting challenge, actually, because with our podcast, this is a different situation.
They're historical,
right? Because it depends on why you're listening. If you're just listening for like jokes and funsies and little tidbits of knowledge and whatever, then the temporal aspect probably doesn't really matter. So then, start the most recent, work your way back.
So for example, if you're listening to this or the Adventure Zone, which is D&D podcast, it's telling a story. So starting at the end is pointless.
Right.
You got to start at the beginning.
Yeah. So if part of what you're doing here is you want to kind of get a sense of like, because a lot of what we're doing with this podcast is basically documenting the building of this studio and how our opinions on things are changing over time and all of that. And by listening to it in order, you actually get to observe that happen. And the fact is, if you listen to it in reverse order, you get to watch a studio decompose. Yeah, exactly. You're going to be hearing worse and worse ideas, right? That are more and more wrong actually over time. Instead of hearing where we started and hearing us get more, maybe not necessarily more right, but at least
just better.
Coming up with things that work better. So it just totally depends. If it's purely entertainment, probably reverse because. Then as soon as you don't like it anymore, you can stop listening and you don't have to listen to earlier episodes, right?
Well, by the time it devolves into stuff you don't care about, you're like,
or the audio gets too bad, just don't listen. But if this is for like, if you just like want to learn about game dev or what it's like to run a small business or
launching games,
any of this kind of stuff, I think the historical record is the cool part.
I was actually really happy because we got a note from Matt Rathel who's the guy who heads up Graphite. And again, their game Hive Jump's coming out. And he said he listened to the pre-launch episode of Crashlands to sort of soothe his nerves because
he wanted to hear what we were thinking the week before we launched our game.
And apparently he's in the same sort of place. So he's like, I think like everything that has been done, everything that can be done has been done. Like I'm at peace with whatever happens. And that kind of gave him a nice little note of calm in there. So I think if you want to listen to it to sort of follow the journey, then chronological is the way to do it. For funsies, backward, definitely.
And if you want to just if you're the type of person who just likes to see the world burn, just listen
Chaos
to
mode.
Just listen to the prime numbered ones, starting at the beginning, but then listen to even numbered ones from the end and work your way backwards and have them meet in the middle.
Yeah, that'll be good.
And then have them fight to the death.
There is one episode in particular though, that if you aren't starting at the beginning, that would then you wouldn't listen to for a long time, that you might want to go listen to earlier because it is still my favorite episode, I think, which is I believe episode 13, Pint to the Lizard Kingdom.
Yeah, that one,
and honestly,
I don't know what happened.
If it's skip the first part, like skip the us talking about studio stuff, just go right into the questions because there's there's a really good I don't even know what you call it, ramble. That is still one of my favorite podcast moments.
Pint to the Lizard Kingdom.
Yeah, well, this is kind of a question that we've always kind of grappled with. It's like, how on topic should we be? Because we could really fly off the rails.
Oh yeah,
those are the most fun times.
Yeah,
for sure.
But hey, if this is something you want, go ahead and fill out our survey over podcast.bscotch.net and be like, I really wish you guys would fly off the rails more.
But here's the thing: a few people said that, and a few others were like, I wish you would fly off the rails less because I'm trying to learn about stuff.
Yeah, but there's the internet,
so we'll do what we want.
All right, cool. Well, go to podcast.bscotch.net to ask us questions for next week. Check out the podcast survey that's up there. There's going to be a link to the first episode, which is totally free, of the documentary about the making of Crashlands in our studio.
That launches this weekend on the 21st.
Which is the 1-year anniversary of Crashlands. The Global Game Jam is this weekend, so definitely participate. And
Hive Jump
otherwise,
launches today.
Get Hive Jump. And
Check it out
we will
on
talk
Steam.
to you next friggin' week.
Goodbye.
Bye.